What about software instruments? What about this thing MIDI? MIDI? No, it's MIDI. MIDI. I'm not even going to tell you what it stands for. I don't actually know what it stands for, but it's basically the signals that you're sending from a controller or from your keyboard into the computer, and it registers it, and you're able to trigger sounds from a software instrument or something like that. So for example, if you take a look at the screen here, we have Massive X here, and I also have this controller right here, which is a M Audio. Let's see if I could show you. You're gonna want to get something like, let's just pull this out because, okay. So you're gonna want to get something like this. This is an M Audio MIDI controller. It's an Logic Pro MIDI. You don't have to get this exact one. You can get some of the other ones. This is like a smaller keyboard that you can use to trigger sounds inside of your DAW, inside of Logic here. So it's super easy. It usually comes with a USB cable, and you just kind of plug it in and it just works. Usually MIDI controllers is like a standard for them. I can sit here and just play these keys, and all of these things are mapped to certain things. Even these pads are mapped. Those can be mapped. All of this stuff can be mapped. So for example, and when I say mapped, I mean you can actually assign them to control things. So let's go into here. Actually, what I want to do is pull up Serum, which is another great plugin. Let's grab it. And then we can go into here, and I'm going to pick this new library that I got. It's really pretty sounding. So you can play these things in, but then you can also learn the piano roll editor. So if you're not able to play right away, and I will really highly encourage you to learn how to play keys a little bit so that you'll be able to move around and actually record things. But you can actually pull up your keyboard editor by doing P. And when you hit the P key, it'll pull up this piano roll here, and you can basically just click in all the notes that you want to play. So, and then that will play whatever you want it to play. And like whatever you put in here, it'll do. So if I just, click around, that sounds crazy, but you get the point. So there's another thing that you can do with MIDI, and you can actually just like record a sound and then use things like Quantize to make sure that your playing is tight to the grid, or even swinging if you want it to. Let me just show you an example really quick. I'll just like record a bit of keys. So I didn't record that to the metronome, and if we listen to it, we notice that it's not on the bar. So what we could do is actually select all of these things and move them around manually, just like this. If we wanted to, just move them to where they're supposed to be. But you notice how it's not exactly perfect. So if we wanted to fix it even more, we hit Command A to select all of them. And then we have this Quantize section here. Now this is the other tip, is using Quantize to help your MIDI be better. You can quantize it by 1/16, and Quantize basically is snapping it to the grid. So you can see all these little grid marks here, right? So 1/16 will be a 16th note. So let's go ahead and hit Q right here. And you see how it kind of snapped everything to the grid. So now it is a computer. Sometimes there's like interesting things, like that last one is kind of cool, but this one right here is wrong. So let's move it over. So now we notice that it's like a little bit too rigid. Say we wanted to make it sound a little bit less rigid. We can actually do that here. So there's things called swing. We select that kind of swing. We select the track. And we hit Quantize, and now it moved everything just a little bit. You could do a lot of things with MIDI, and you can do a lot of things with quantizing your MIDI, and there's a whole slew of things I'm not actually going into, but for beginners, using Quantize when you're playing your keys and you're playing your MIDI instruments will help you get things sounding a little bit better and not as wild. And here's another tip really quick. Make sure you record to a click track. I didn't actually record to one here, but I have pretty decent timing, and I can record without the click. So I'm not like perfect, but recording to a click will always make it better and will always bring you closer to actually not having to use Quantize if you know how to play. And plus, you become a better player that way anyway, so you might as well do it. And so you have a slew of instruments in Logic Pro that you can actually use. You're probably like, Kirk, I don't have Serum, I don't have Massive, but you have all of these. You have Alchemy, you have Drum Designer, you have Drum Synth, EFM1, you have all of these synths that you can actually use, and Retro Synth is actually really sick. So let's listen to this. This is probably set to a mono synth. Oh no, it's not. But you could do so many cool things with this. You can play around with the ADSR, you can play around with filters, you can add a flanger, glide, all this stuff. It's really cool. So these synths actually also come with a bunch of sounds if you're looking for good sounds. You know, I would start with these, but then I would also try to get, you know, different sounds if you can. So let's just see what this one, let's see, that's a pad, strings, keyboard. Let's see what this sounds like. This is cool. So I can actually even play with this, play around with this stuff, and I'm just messing around with stuff. So get in here, mess around with these different instruments, find things that you really like, and you'll find that the third-party stuff is usually a little bit better, but this is a really great place for you to start and play around with things and even just get ideas out, because you can always replace the instrument if you have the MIDI. That's a cool thing about MIDI too. So another thing that you can do with MIDI is automate the parameters, and I'm not going to go too deep into how many things you can actually do, but like I'm going to jump into Massive X here, or no, Serum. Let's jump into Serum. So this creator has given us a bunch of macros to be able to automate. Now, what if we wanted to automate those? We can hit the A key, and that brings up our automation lanes. And now if you don't know where to go, you can click on this and you can select this, but look at all of these things here, and it might be hard sometimes to find what you want to automate. Here's a really cool thing that you can do. You can do this with audio as well. If you have effects on your audio track, you can select these automation modes and you could set it. This is what I do literally all the time. Select it and set it to write mode. Cool. It gives you that thing. Like just know that whatever you do now will be written to the track. And so if you have automation there before, it won't it won't last because you're going to overwrite it. So now the next thing I do is hit record. Whatever thing I want to change, I change it, and notice as I'm changing it, you could see it writing it. So you could do a whole bunch of cool things with this, and now we can set it back to read mode, and now you can change these things and it won't mess up your automation. See how these are moving? So you could do this with pretty much anything in Logic Pro. Just make sure that you are paying attention to these modes. If you want it to be safe, you can use the touch mode. So whatever you touch, it'll like go there and then stay to that, or it'll change. Write mode overwrites everything, and read mode reads it. And you can actually even go in and just set up automation in here. If you zoom in, you could just like click points here and you can click and drag it, and it'll do it, which is cool. So automation is really great. You can do this with audio as well, and that's a really cool way you can automate MIDI parameters and all of that cool stuff too. Okay, so in Logic, we also have these MIDI effects. So what are these MIDI effects? Like, what do they do? They're not instruments, they're different. So for example, if I just make a new track here, and if I wanted to say, make this play a chord, I can actually put this chord trigger in here, and you can actually pick different kinds of chords you want to play. So like, let's say we wanted keyboard voicings, blues left hand. Not super musical for this one. There are better ones, like Cthulhu is actually really good. So for example, if we go in here, this is one that I referred to earlier. See what I'm saying? You can go through these art presets, or you can click into here, presets in here as well. You can go to diatonic, go here. I'm only playing one note right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of cool. So MIDI effects, you can do a whole bunch of cool things. You can do things like arpeggiator. So if I hold down a bunch of notes, change the variation. You can change a whole bunch of cool things. I use arpeggiator a lot when I'm just trying to add layers with synths that I don't want to actually draw in, but you can play around with a bunch of cool MIDI effects, which will actually unlock another thing in your instrument and another way to play your instrument that might actually help you create chords or melodies or just arps and stuff like that. And I hope you like this video and subscribe it and share it to a friend that's also learning how to produce, and leave a comment below on what you want me to go deeper in the next video.